Hey, what's up, everybody? Isaac here, Civil Engineering Academy. Thanks for joining me today on this podcast episode. Still in the middle of moving, so apologize for any noises and stuff in the background, but just got to deal with it. So anyway, I'm excited today. I got a really special guest. I enjoyed my interview with him, Nick Heim. He's a structural engineer, designing and maintaining, doing inspections on parking garages. Kind of an interesting niche for structural engineers to dive into, but he's out of Ohio. He also does podcasts with EMI and writes awesome blog articles. All the good stuff is in there. But we touch on his experience as being a president of the ASCE and the chapter that he's in, and a lot of other things. So I think you're going to enjoy this episode. I know I did. This is a great episode for anybody jumping into this arena or wanting to be a structural engineer or finding themselves in this niche of parking garages. So I'm excited to share this one with you. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. We always ask for a like and a subscribe. That always goes a long way, and give this a share with a friend if you can. We love you sharing it. So thanks for being here. We're excited for this episode, and my interview with Nick will be coming up right after this. Hey, before we start diving into this awesome podcast episode with lots of nuggets of awesome wisdom that we're going to help you with, I want to take a moment to highlight our awesome partner, Civil Engineer Gear. As a civil engineer myself, this is hands down the go-to destination for sleek and professional looking day-to-day gear with a civil engineering flair. You can bet that it's mine for sure. So whether you're on the job site, the job office, you're burning the midnight oil studying for your exams, or you're just chilling at home on the weekends, which many of us do, there is civil engineering inspired products there that combine functionality and professionalism to be your companion, your best companion during those days you want to check out. I definitely love the comfortable t-shirts and sweatshirts. I'm wearing one right now. I don't start my day without a awesome drink, one of my favorite drinks, and their awesome canteens. We also have awesome mugs, and don't even get me started on the spacious bags that they have there. They're big enough for all of my personal protective equipment, my PPE, shove it all in there, carry it with me. And it's not so big that you can't carry it around. It's actually a perfect fit. You can use it for your gym clothes. You can use it for your camping gear, yoga, whatever it is, you name it, throw it in the bag. Now, the best part of all this is that shipping is free on all orders. So if you are interested in getting some sweet civil engineering gear, check it out at civilengineergear.com, and make sure to treat yourself with some awesome gear and accessories tailored specifically to your professional and personal life as a civil engineer. Go check it out. You won't be disappointed. All right, Nick, we're rocking and rolling here. Thanks for joining me on the Civil Engineering Academy podcast. I appreciate you doing this with me.
Likewise, Isaac, and thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. You've produced quite a bit of content out there in the civil engineering world. I just wanted to connect and pick your brain, and I always love to kind of get the pulse on the industry, whether it's AI or whatever else you're working on in your world. So I always love to start these out, though, by just getting your background, how you found yourself in this world of civil engineering and why you chose the route you chose.
Yeah, so it all started back when I was in kindergarten, right? Playing with, really, it was train sets, blocks, and computers, and that general interest in, building stuff, being hands-on, right? Math, science, like a lot of us carried through high school, tech and shop classes combined with, math, chemistry, physics, right? But what I think really led me down the engineering career path, man, was there was a career day at our local Institute of Technology, and I grew up in New Jersey, so NJIT, and they had this really cool demo at the civil engineering station. And you were able to essentially use like a very rudimentary structural analysis program, right? And move a truck across a bridge and apply the loads and see how the bridge would react, like it would break, and then say, okay, try again. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And of all the disciplines, like being able to, be hands-on in construction, more side of things, right, was really appealing to me. And that's how I got my start in civil engineering, right? Did a bachelor's and a master's out here in Cleveland, Ohio, and started my career. So that's kind of the long and the short of how I've gotten involved in civil engineering.
Awesome. So what are you doing today for work? Where have you found yourself?
Yeah, so today I work for a company called Structure Care. We specialize in parking structure restoration. So think, right, anytime you go and park in an elevated parking structure, typically concrete, whether it's precast or cast in place or some sort of hybrid system, right? You roll a parking deck up a ramp, right? And you look up and the concrete looks nasty or it looks really good, right? Like we're the design build firm, both right, the engineering, construction in-house. I, of course, work on the engineering side, working to keep those types of structures maintained.
Okay. So that's, I mean, maybe for some structural engineers that may be more of a specialty, I guess, but why did you end up choosing that kind of arena to dive into versus others?
Yeah, so it was part when I got out of college, I thought, like many of us, right, sitting behind a desk, all day, every day wasn't exactly appealing. And like I said, I went to school in Cleveland, Ohio, decided to stick around in the area, but I'm, of course, still here. But in areas like Cleveland, where there isn't a ton of new development, there tend to be a lot more opportunities for like maintenance and restoration. So restoration engineering is, I'd say, a niche or a specialty subset of structural engineering. Some may say it's kind of its own thing, but in kind of older cities like Cleveland, there is quite the demand. So just understanding that and the options available to me at the time, started my career kind of in a firm that specialized in building envelope and restoration of structures, and that's kind of where I landed and where I've been since.
So I'm curious, for people maybe don't know, but how are you finding work? Is it something our garage is inspected and even a request for proposal on doing the work for that coming into your lap?
Yeah, so there are a variety of ways that, right, business comes in the door. One that's becoming more popular, inspection laws. So take New York City is a great example, right? Local Law 126, there's to date about 4,500 parking structures that are mandated to be inspected periodically, right? So there are some cities like New York City, New York State has its own, other municipalities have it. So sometimes it's just a requirement by law. Others are, a client may come to us and say, hey, I've had partial collapse. I had a piece of concrete fall and hit a BMW, right? I now see the need to actually get my asset inspected so something like this doesn't happen again. Others, and I do get involved on the sales and marketing side somewhat, we actually reach out and we identify, hey, here's all the parking garages in Cleveland, Ohio, and we go find the owners and discuss the benefits of working with a company like us. And as more recently, right, social media, great source of business. People may see your content and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you, might have an opportunity for you. So as you can see, it's kind of a mix, just depending on what each client's specific needs are.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess in your particular niche or industry, what are you using for technology, and what are you seeing in the future in terms of AI or machine learning as playing a role in helping with what you're doing?
Definitely. So a lot of the software we use in the field revolves around cataloging and basically cataloging issues and then quantifying, right? So let's say we see a piece of concrete that looks like it's about to fall overhead. And, we say, hey, this may turn into an overhead repair. It looks like it's about 10 square feet, right? We snap a photo. We're able to basically systematically catalog the conditions as we see them, right? All tied to a set of plans, making the next step in the process like easier. So it's really a more advanced form, I'd say, of a, pen and paper on clipboard, right? Something that everybody can pick up pretty easily. Our construction partners understand it, right? Everybody kind of understands this system that's been around in some form, whether it was pen and paper or it was digital, right? But the good question, asking about AI and machine learning. So a lot of what we do in this field is visual, right? And there's a term called computer vision, right? A subset of artificial intelligence. And very basically, it just means it's like the computer has eyes and it sees just like we do. And because of a lot of what we do is somewhat repetitive in nature and visual, right? There are ways to train a computer with machine learning algorithms to systematically identify like what we as humans through training know and see. And there's great software on the market now. I think the challenge is just that paradigm shift from, hey, we've always done it this way. And then getting to trust the computer, trust what it's telling you, and being skeptical as every engineer should be. But I do think this industry has a really great future, particularly just because we talk about, the construction labor shortage a lot. On the same note, right, there's an engineering shortage, and universities aren't quite pumping out civil structural engineers at the rate they used to be. So just like everyone's talking about the labor shortage and craft labor for construction, we've got very similar problems here on the engineering side.
It definitely makes sense. It'll be interesting to see where AI kind of takes those inspection elements and the software packages that are out there to help, I guess, make your job easier in that arena. So,
and what I always tell people, Isaac, is did the first structural analysis software package put structural engineers out of business? Of course not, right?
Right.
And you can look at it from the way laws are written, right? You always need a PE, and at least here in the States, to be able to sign and seal work. And I just think that these emerging technologies, like AI in particular, are going to be here to supplement what we do and not replace us. So I try to come at it with an approach of, hey, this is like a tool that's here to help me, not take away my job, essentially.
That makes sense. Are you hearing out there that people are worried about this? Is it,
I do think the general population, from my own experience, right, there does seem to be a fear. And if you talk to some of the brilliant minds behind technology in this space, right, they'll tell you somewhat of the same thing. People have a lot of questions. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of fear as to hey, what is this going to do to me in my career, and what is it going to mean? So it depends who you talk to, but I would say there's generally an air of a little bit of unease. And I think it's more because people don't understand what the technology is doing, right? And I think it's up to the thought leaders in the industry to educate everyone to help them get that understanding.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's a fascinating world. I'm very interested to use, and I do use, but use these things as tools to help us make our jobs easier and more efficient. So, one of the things that you have as well, in terms of talking about all this technology, is you have your commercial pilot's license for flying drones. Is that correct?
That is correct.
How has drone usage helped you in your industry? And maybe touch on maybe that exam. Why would it benefit for someone to go get that license?
Definitely. So, and again, I'll say, think of all these emerging technologies as tools in your toolbox, right? Like a drone's like a hammer, right? Like a computer vision based software could be like a tape measure, right? They're all just different tools to help us do our jobs more efficiently. But getting back to your specific question, right? So where I started my career was more heavily focused on building envelope and facade inspections, right? And one of the issues is at height, right? You obviously your ability to see conditions from the ground decreases as the building gets higher. So what I was tasked with and working with my mentor at the time was, hey, further developing the company's drone program and being able to fly jobs all across the country, whether it be disaster recovery, facade inspection, right? And essentially use, right, what is a drone? It's just a sensor that flies, and the sensor could be it could be a camera, it could be something related to thermography, So the point being is we were just looking for more efficient ways to capture data. Now is like, say like a young civil engineer, maybe you're just getting out of college and you're not really sure what you do. I think it's a great idea to just take the test while you're still in school, because if you go into the field like mine, there's definitely a use. If you go into work for a general contractor, like there's all sorts of uses, particularly with reality capture, with drones. So I think it's just a great idea and a great certificate to have.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I've gotten mine as well in the industry that I'm in, and we use drones for inspection purposes. Obviously video and photos are good stuff, but even all the other functions that they can do, thermal imaging, thermal cameras, all kinds of awesome technologies that are available in the drone world. So I highly recommend checking that out as well. You mentioned people starting out their careers, beginning their careers, jumping into this industry. Do you have any other tips for engineers that maybe want to follow the same path that you're in as they start this journey that maybe you would share with them?
Yeah, I would actually say, so there's of course the focus on your coursework, right? We all know how important that is, and having a solid foundation for any engineering career. And I think everybody like naturally understands that, right? Like you're pursuing the degree to get certified as an EIT and then eventually a PE. So that's a given. But, in tandem with that, we all say network, right? But nobody tells you how to network at that age, right? Like, do you just go to an ASCE meeting and stand around and hope to say hi to a couple people, right? I actually think the same advice I would give myself coming out of school about 10 years ago, or that was high school, but I guess it'd be 6 or 7 years at this point, coming out of college, like LinkedIn and social media, right, is an excellent resource to kind of expedite that networking phase and really meet some interesting and like-minded people. The opportunity that's available, right? The people that you can eventually meet in person from these conversations is amazing, and the opportunity it's provided me has been fantastic. So I would just say focus on networking and the soft skills like everybody tells you, but I would try to use what's more readily available to us today that, say, maybe your senior engineer in a company may not be as familiar with, because there was no LinkedIn, there was no Twitter, now we call it X, right, back when they started, and it just wasn't as popular of a form of social media for our industry specifically.
That definitely makes sense to me. I also know you were the president of the ASCE in the section that you're in. I guess how involved, you must have been really involved with the ASCE, but for any engineers that may be questioning whether they want to join that society, or even your experience as the president, how did that influence your career, or even your outlook on civil engineering?
That's a great question, Isaac. And I think what ASCE does is it exposes you to that larger civil engineering community, right? Because you go to college, right? You have your local chapter, which I was definitely a part of, and then you graduate and you may join, right, your city's, your city, branch, state, whatever level it is, right? In the case here, it's the Cleveland, Ohio section, which I did work my way up and served as president, not this past term, but the previous, right? And being part of the organization kind of exposes you to this bigger vision that ASCE has for us as engineers, and you can look up, a variety of their different initiatives. But for my career development, it allowed me to network with a lot of people here locally, which has definitely led to some opportunity. And being able to develop those skills that everybody talks about, right? Like leadership and soft and the interpersonal skills, but actually being able to like not just read about it in a book or talk about it, right? But like actually apply it and like run a meeting and, review budgets and all these different types of skills that are great to have, but you might not have otherwise been exposed to, if not for like a professional society.
Was it difficult being the president? Was it time consuming?
It was very rewarding, though. I will say that. So it is time consuming. And one thing that actually taught me was delegation. And because in the way we're set up, right, you only have a year. So if, you kind of learn the job as you go as much as you can. But if I had that second, like I say, if I had a second term as president, there's a number of things I would have done differently. And delegation is definitely one of those pieces, which essentially becomes setting people up for success so they can help you.
Awesome. You've got your PE as well. I'm just curious, for young engineers, what tips or advice would you share with people trying to earn that?
So the first thing I will say, right, because I took the exam back in 2021, and I understand that the test format has changed. I think I was one of the last cycles to do fully just pen and paper, and now it's computer-based. So the first thing I would say is be careful where you get your advice, because what I'm going to tell you is likely going to be somewhat different than the reality of the current computer-based test. So that would be my first thing. I'll fully admit that I'm not going to know everything about this new testing format. And Isaac, I know that, right, Civil Engineering Academy, this is kind of your guys' specialty. So I'll actually
we try to keep the pulse on there, even with the big changes that are happening in April as well. So the test always continually evolves. So you're spot on there.
Yeah, and exactly, and just making sure the information you're getting is up to date, because if you ask, right, maybe you're young engineer at a company and you're asking a senior colleague and they're telling you all these different things, right? That information may not even be pertinent. And what I always tell people is, hey, look at somebody who's 2 to 3 years ahead of you, right? And go to them for advice. And in this case, I might be 5 or 6. I would actually defer down to someone a couple of years younger than me who's recently taken the test and passed, because I think that's going to be your most accurate source of information. But if you still want my advice after that, I'll be glad to share. But I'll be the first to say, right, because things change, and sometimes you just have to say, hey, I am not the most knowledgeable person on this type of situation right now.
Yeah, they just seem to change more rapidly too.
Exactly.
They just switched to CVT. They accelerated that because of COVID. Then they changed the specs. Probably the biggest spec change they've ever had is happening in April, where they've dropped breadth section. So,
but there's always going to be that timeless wisdom that, right, it doesn't matter what the test format is, right? And that's the type of stuff that I always say, hey, go grab your senior engineer, because their 25 plus years of experience is going to be invaluable. It's just, you got to pick, in my mind, depending on what you're looking for, you need to pick and choose what sources of guidance you look for.
Yep, I totally agree. Good advice. Well, awesome. Nick, you've shared a ton of stuff with us today. I think you're in a very interesting field, an interesting niche in that field. You're also heavily involved in the technology side of this and all of that fun stuff too. So it was fun to chat about that. Is there any last tips or that you would share with someone entering this industry, or did we get it covered?
I would say throughout my career, there's going to be, hey, you should follow this career path and XYZ to be a structural engineer or a civil engineer and do this, which for the most part, right, it is great advice if that's the path that you want to follow. So I would say take the advice that you receive, and even mine today, with, right, take it with a grain of salt, and just make sure that it's applicable to the career path that you want to be on. Because it's great, because I can tell you all about how to basically work as a structural engineer, applying their expertise to parking garage restoration, right? I can go on and on all day. But if that's not the career path that you want to take, maybe my advice isn't the best advice to take, right? So just understanding where you're at, what you want to do, and your goals and aspirations, and spend some time thinking about that. And hey, and things change in life, and if you feel yourself moving in a different direction, or maybe there's something new that you want to try, don't be afraid to do it. I think even more so today in 2024, that civil engineers have, a greater variety of options, right? You can take the traditional route. Maybe you want to go work for a software company. Maybe you want to be a ghostwriter for, XYZ companies that do things related to civil engineering on LinkedIn, right? Like, there are a lot of possibilities. I think you just got to expose yourself to figure out what you might want to do.
Good tips, good advice. I appreciate that. Hey, I'm curious, is the SE on your horizon?
It is not. The SE is my career path is taking a little bit of a different trend. But what I will say, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, that anyone who, right, so if you take it, you're brave, right? Number one. And if you pass it, like, you're brilliant, because we know the pass rates for the SE are just abysmally low. I think lower than, I want to say, the bar and the equivalent exam to become a physician.
Yeah, there's definitely been articles written about that. And truly, if you think about it, the responsibility of a structural engineer is just as important, in terms of life and making sure public safety is good. So,
and it's just, and in my opinion, I just don't think it's as obvious to the public, whether that be portrayal in the media or, right, because everybody has to go to the doctor. And at some point, everybody's going to probably deal with a lawyer. But does everybody deal with a structural engineer throughout their life? Probably not. I mean, indirectly, yes. But, you poll the general population, they're going to say, hey, when's the last time you were face-to-face with a doctor? Okay. When's the last time you were face-to-face with a structural engineer? Yeah, the percentage is going to be a lot lower. So, and I do think public perception has a lot to do with it.
It's true. Definitely not talked about enough or appreciated enough, I think. And that's partly why we do these podcasts too, is just kind of spread the word and awareness of the cool things that civil engineers do, including structural engineering, and really how it affects all of our lives. So
absolutely.
Good tips. Well, Nick, thank you for joining me today. This has been really awesome. I appreciate you doing this. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, maybe to talk about a career path or what you have going on, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, and thank you again, Isaac, so much for having me. But LinkedIn's the best place to reach me. Just please shoot me a connection request, shoot me a message. More than happy to help, especially, those who are, like I said, a little bit further behind in terms of, years of experience, right? Because I've really only gotten to the point that I have through, some great people and great mentors that I've known, and I'm definitely happy to do what I can to give back to the community.
Awesome. You've also written a ton of articles, done podcasting, and with EMI, so we'll make sure we link some of that as well. So,
yes,
Nick, thanks. You're all over the place.
Yeah, and I was going to say, hey, who knows? Maybe I'll have my own AI chatbot, and you can just ask me questions 20 hours.
I like it. Well, thanks, Nick. I hope you have a great day.
Likewise, Isaac. Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. See ya.